Storms going on both coasts. We've got winter storm warnings up for much of the interior northeast as a nor'easter takes shape off the New Jersey coast or the Delaware coast. And in the west, we have another one of these endless major storms with winter storm warnings and flood watches up for much of California and Nevada. And I'm going to tell you, it is cold here in the deep south. We've got freeze warnings up because our growing season's has already started in some places. So we'll talk all about that and figure out what is going to happen in the Northeast. All of that on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, and Southwest Suffolk County on Long Island as they make the transition over from winter to spring. They've got topsoil, they've got sand, and they've got mulch and all kinds of other spring products that you might need to make sure your home looks like a magnificently landscaped mansion. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number. Nowhere can you find better prices, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com. Good evening, Joe.
Good evening, Mr. Rayo.
Yes.
And good evening to everybody on the chat board. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show. We have Silvio Balzano's already hit the tip jar. It's his first hit of the tip jar. Thank you, Silvio. And also we have one other one that I saw. I believe it was Anthony Sparaccio saying, "Whoa, it certainly looks like rain tonight." Whoa, it certainly looks like rain tonight.
Like rain tonight. Yep.
It does.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
indeed it does.
Well, I don't know how you feel about this. Somebody asked me a little earlier today, said, again, dating back to my comment a few weeks ago about how I hadn't used the snowblower yet. And, he said, "Hey, Joe, you got the snowblower ready for tomorrow?" And I said, "No, I don't." She said, "What do you mean you don't?" And I said, I don't snowblow the grass. So as far as I'm concerned, that's how it's going to play out. If it snows 3 or 4 inches at my house, fine. But it's only going to snow on my deck, I predict, and my grass and my trees, and maybe if my daughter is here and she's got the car outside, not in the garage, her car top. But as far as needing a snowblower for the driveway or the side of the house, I don't think I'm going to be needing that. Not with all of the rain that has already fallen and the temperatures, which probably are not going to get to below freezing at all during the overnight and into tomorrow too.
Not without intensity. I have to tell you, 24, now that this thing is starting to get underway, I have never been. I'm trying to just think back over the last number of years. I have never been less confident or more confused by what's going on. Joe, I went through just about every single model I could look at this afternoon, be it the NAM, the GFS, the European, the HRRR, the RGEM, the Canadian. And the one thing I discovered was that every single one of them has a totally different look as far as not only, and here we are 24 hours from now, the low is going to be someplace in southeast New England, and they're everywhere. They're all over. They're all in different places. They're all showing different precip types. They're all showing different times in certain areas where precipitation, the rain is supposed to change over to snow. If you believe the GFS, for one thing, it changes over to snow in parts of the lower Hudson Valley sometime around 9 or 10 o'clock tonight. You look at some of the other models, you look at the HRRR, it's not until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And you look at some other ones, and it's like it's no changeover at all. It just stops, and then you have to wait for the precip to kind of back southward when the low starts to drop southeastward and does his little loop or whatever it's going to do. I don't know what to do here. I looked at what I did on my first call map. I only slightly adjusted it this morning for a final call, and I'm just thinking maybe I could have left the first call alone. I'm just really confused.
It might have something to do with the fact that we're not dealing with a singular storm. The main storm, the primary storm, is going to go all the way out away from the coast and then kind of loop back to the north and west toward Cape Cod by tomorrow night. But there's a second storm that is bubbling up literally right adjacent to the South Jersey or Delmarva coast. And that storm, I presume, is going to have a say in the weather for this evening or tonight, and
Right, that's the one
causing the precipitation to come
right.
on down, come down hard.
That's the one that's under the upper low. But I mean, there's a big difference. I forgot which model it was. That I think the HRRR on one, maybe it was the HRRR. I'm not sure if it was. Has well. Let me back up. There's a couple of things. First of all, in looking at all of this, one of the reasons why this is setting up more to the north and not to the south is the fact that this southern feature came out too soon. It came out probably about 6 to 8 hours too soon, because that really kind of stays as a separate entity. If it had come out 6 or 8 hours later when it moved off the North Carolina coast, that would be the one low we'd be dealing with. The cutoff low, the upper low would be coming down, and it would be strengthening somewhere east of Delaware, south of Long Island, and all the snow lovers would be rejoicing.
Right.
And
Right.
they'll be dancing in the streets. But because it was faster, that low's going out. It stays as a separate entity. It goes up. So by the time the upper low comes down, the low is already parallel to Long Island, southern New England. It's already too far out, too far north at that point. So that kind of messes things up. And then you have this whole idea that there'll probably be a second low that, because you could see the stretched isobar, there's a second low that forms underneath the upper low. But the upper low's not as far south. It's not down in Delaware Bay. It's about 40 or 50 miles further north, and that makes all the difference in the world. I mean, I'm just, like I said, I'm just kind of, I'm confused as to what the outcome's going to be, when the changeovers are going to take place, how much snow's going to really fall, because I'm starting to wonder whether all those, top range amounts, I don't think they're going to happen. I could be wrong on that in the elevated areas way up, up north in the Hudson
Yeah.
Valley and so on. But I've been just shaking my head all day, and after this show's over, I'm going to bed. 'Cause
Well, I'll tell you, I was arguing, or not arguing, but complaining yesterday about the fact that on the special statements that both Albany and the New York City weather services were putting out, they had not mentioned anything about elevation. I said, how could you not mention elevation? Elevation is going to play a key role in who's going to get what in terms of snowfall. But this afternoon, Joe, in looking at the latest list of winter storm warnings and advisories, yes, in the areas of the winter storm warning or parts of the Hudson Valley, they mention elevation. They mention elevations above 750 feet. I personally would have mentioned it a little bit higher, maybe like 900 feet, but they do at least mention elevation, which only goes to show that somewhere over there, somebody is listening to us on the Joe and Joe.
Clearly, they're glued right now to the Joe and Joe weather show. I'm sure. I'm just sure of it. As is SPC and WPC, because they don't even make any decisions until they've heard from us. Helen Bertona hitting the tip jar tonight. Thank you very much, and thank you for the kind words. Most appreciated. And David Fuller hits the tip jar, says, I should be fine here. He's in Monmouth County in New Jersey tomorrow. I assume we're not seeing any surprises. I assume. Well, depending on which model you look at, actually, one of the more bizarre solutions was thrown by the HRRR earlier today, Joe. It had snow from Route 78 in New Jersey south to almost all the way down south of Atlantic City. It had rain in northeast New Jersey over Long Island and southern Connecticut, and then it had snow kind of enveloped around that. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, I was looking at the upper low, and I got that part, but it was just one of the more bizarre maps that I have seen through all of this. I like I said, I'm just left in a state of. I'm usually fairly decisive at this point, but I'm just kind of. I wouldn't. Nothing's going to shock me in terms of what turns out of this tomorrow.
I think a lot of forecasters, it wasn't bothering them over the weekend because they, again, maybe were just looking at the pretty colors and seeing all the blue corresponding and in deep shades of blue corresponding to heavy duty snow. But I think what's beginning to bother them now is the fact that they're noticing that the temperatures aren't going to be coming down very hard. I mean, or very fast. They're noticing that on the NAM, for example, and on the GFS, the MOS temperature guidance is all saying the same thing: no lower than 33 or 34 tonight into tomorrow. It's what I've been saying. I've been saying from the get-go that yes, whatever snow that does develop overnight or early tomorrow morning is going to stick, but it's going to stick to the colder surfaces. I honestly don't think that we're going to see much, if any, accumulation on the paved surfaces. And a lot of schools have closed now in the Hudson Valley, and except unless those places in the Hudson Valley that have closed are again above 800 or 900 feet elevation, where I think then it'll stick everywhere, stick
Right.
even to the paved surfaces. But for many of the schools that are much lower elevations, they can look out the window tomorrow. They're going to see more than a few inches of snow maybe on the grass, and say, but look, they must have did a good job. There's nothing I see on the roads. Or guess what? Even on your driveway, really,
Right.
it's going to be that kind of a morning tomorrow.
Sharbar, Sharebar 117 hitting the tip jar. Thank you, Sharebar. And Joe, this is a question for you. What she wants to, I assume it's a she. What are we looking at in Yonkers?
Yonkers is the city of hills, and I'm not exactly sure. I think the highest locations in Yonkers are up at about 600 or 700 feet. So I am, in fact, and let me just check out my snow map. And in fact, Joe, if you give me a sharing capability, I'll show you. This is what I posted yesterday. I'm saying in Yonkers, probably an inch or two.
All right, hang on.
Does that sound too small for somebody? But Joe, somebody wrote last night on my Facebook page, how
Go
come
ahead.
you're going?
Your
How
share.
come you're going? How come you're going so much lower than everybody else?
Forecast shopper. Forecast
and
shopper. Where's security? Forecast shopper.
And I wrote back to the woman. I said, would you like? I'll go way higher if you'd like, just for you.
Or either
all
that,
right.
or that the other forecaster has a tendency to drink before he forecasts.
Now, let's not bring Tex Antoine into this.
Oh, be nice.
Oh,
it's all
right.
yours. Hold on, let me get myself out of the way so we can look at this artwork.
And you know what, Joe? Does this look difficult to understand? More than a few people said, I don't understand this map. I can't read it.
Can you just make it bigger?
Yeah, I can.
See what happens if you make it bigger.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
No, that makes it sideways.
Well, hang on.
No, but if you hit the the little dots over there and you go down to zoom.
I can make it bigger like that. How much bigger do you want it?
Well, that doesn't help. No. I'm talking. What?
Well, this I put this on.
Oh, you put it on. Okay, you're not on a browser. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Well, do the best.
Word.
Do the best you can. I'm sorry. What are you gonna do?
My feelings are that for parts of New York City and even perhaps for parts of the North Shore of Long Island, I put a coating to 1 inch possible, and then as we head up into Westchester, yes. Oh, you want to make it bigger? I put this map on Microsoft Word. My daughter is down here, the tech giant.
Okay.
All right. All right.
All right. You know what? While she's making your graphic bigger, I'm going to bring up mine. Okay.
Good. Okay.
Because
I also have the original. Wait a minute. I'm just telling you. I said I also have it as a JPEG. Do you want me to turn into it? Just bring the JPEG up. What? Why don't I do that? All right, Joe. I'm going to stop sharing for the moment.
All right. Hold on. Because I've just no, I didn't crash, but my browser froze. Oh, there it goes. Finally. Okay. All right. So you've unshared. So let me bring mine up. And this is what. All right. So I'll bring up two maps. The first one, this was my early call because we like to do this. It's always smart if you're a young forecaster watching this show. Um, Always go back and look at what you did so you can figure out what you did right and what you did wrong. And on my map, on my early call, Joe, I had trace 2, 4, 8, and 12. So I had trace over, cutting across Long Island, New Jersey, Route 78. Then, basically four or more in Northwest Jersey, and the 8 line is like at Port Jervis, running northeast from there to Route 84 in Connecticut and Litchfield County, and
All right.
and 12 further north than that. So that was my early call. Now for my late call, my final call. Final call, Pan American, flight 638, New York to Cleveland. Please report to the ticket counter and inform us why. Oh, here's my late call, which I I actually moved the 2-inch line down. Now, I think some of this could wind up being right, and some of this is going to wind up being very wrong. I cut a 2-inch line across the Long Island Expressway, so I went for about a slushy couple of inches on the North Shore and maybe an inch on the South Shore, and I moved the inch line to just south of Route 78, and the trace line down to Route 195, and I have 3 inches in Northwest Jersey, 3 inches, down near Bridgeport and points north, and then the 6 line cutting just north of you, and the 12 line, just north of that. So I I don't know. It might happen, it might not. I don't have a lot of confidence in this whatsoever. I think my early call, which is a step lower than this. I'll make it just a little bit bigger so everybody can see. My early call, I think, is probably going to have a better shot than this one does. So anyway, that's what I did. So now I'll go back to you,
Right.
and
And my
now
my
you may.
daughter,
Oh, she showed
my
you how
daughter,
to
the
do it
genius. Well, as I said, I had the map on a
on
Microsoft
Word.
Word thing,
Okay.
and now I'm just using the JPEG and just boom, there it is. So you see, I mean, like I'm obviously more conservative than you because up in my territory, for example, I'm thinking about 2 to 4, just a little ways to the north, 4 to 8. I've got actually uh, this line here, which is more or less in line with I-84 in northern Orange County, and I always say north of there, where it's more mountainous terrain, and especially up toward the Catskills, Sullivan, Ulster County, 8 to 12, 12 to 18. I even stuck my head out and went 18 to 24 are the highest peaks up here. Up here, of course, you also have the Berkshires, 12 to 18, 18 to 24. And where we differ the most, I think, Joe, actually is on the south flank.
Right.
As you said, you've got for Long Island amounts of 1 to 2 or trace to 1 across much of Long Island. I more or less just said for parts of northern Nassau County, there might be a coating to an inch, and there might be a coating to an inch in New York City proper. Maybe in the North Bronx, parts of that area may see an inch or two. But again, this again is a little bit more conservative than what you've had, and far more conservative than many of the forecasters on TV last night. This is why I was getting a raft of people saying, "Why are you going so low, Joe Rayo? Why is everybody else going so high and you're going so low? What do you see that they don't?" And I was going to answer back. I'll answer back if I turn out to be even somewhat right. I'll have an answer tomorrow. But for all of you on the chat board and all of you watching right now, I'm just basing this on more than 40 years of experience, and I'm sure Joe does the same thing.
And the fact that you live up there, so you know your area.
And that's right. And it's
Yeah.
interesting that you say that because National Weather Service, for every year that I've been up here, Joe, this is the honest to God truth. I'm up here now. This is my 21st winter up here. And whenever I look at the Putnam County forecast from NWS, they always go far more than what I always get. I mean, they're going. I don't even know what they're going for now. I mean, they have us under a winter storm watch. They said 5 to 10 inches. Then they went 6 to 12, and then they went 4 to 12.
Oh yeah,
And I'm saying, like,
those digital forecasts are so annoying. I mean, they are just so annoying. They change every hour. You know,
I don't think, no, but it was a statement, though. It
oh
was a
yeah.
printed text statement. But I discovered why they said 4 to 12. They lumped Orange, Putnam, Rockland County, and by lumping, they take into account every possibility, including the high terrain areas, which are more likely to get
Well,
10 or
you know
12
what?
as opposed to lower areas.
People don't see the 4. They see the 12, but they won't see the
Right,
4.
right.
So if you get the 4 and don't get the 12, they're furious because they don't.
Yes.
People just don't read thoroughly through or have a complete understanding of how things work. Um, you know what, the wild card in all of this, I think, is going to be the upper low, and maybe that will surprise. And by the way, supposedly I saw a tweet earlier today that somebody said that they were actually sending hurricane hunters into this to gather more data. So and that'll be in the 0Z run tonight. So who knows what that will do to the already confused. The models were
And that's
actually more in sync 2 days ago than they were today. Go figure.
and it's interesting you say that they're sending hurricane hunters, because on many of the local stations here in New York tonight, they were making this out to be a return of the storm of the century, which, by the way, was 30 years ago tonight. We
Right.
had that the so-called superstorm. They're trying to make this out to be another superstorm, making it sound like, and we have states of emergency declared by Governor Hochul, and
Oh,
they're shutting down this.
apparently the word epic was thrown.
Yeah,
Epic was thrown
epic,
again.
epic, epic.
You
And then
know,
what is it? And what's going to happen if this doesn't live up to expectations?
look,
Or
I'll just say this, Joe. If you and I ever use the word epic in describing a storm, I would advise
we're
everybody watching this show to
in
go
trouble.
really run and hide. Climb in a hole and pull the hole in after you, because danger will lurk everywhere, because that is a word that I have never used to describe, any weather situation, uh, in the forecast part of it. In the aftermath, it's a different story.
Yeah,
We have an occasional. Michael's not here tonight, but that's his favorite word. Everything is epic. Everything is to its natural Armageddon conclusion. Everything is, the coldest month on record, the hottest month on record. He's already worried about April. It's like, Michael, no, and stop. I have to tell him to calm down. Bogies bees, Joe. Bogies bees.
yes, I love
Hit
bogeys bees.
hit the tip jar. All right, let's do some more weather across the country as we take a look. And we'll go to the Weather Service watches and warnings map. Joe Lopresti, I saw what you said about the fact that I got much less snow where you are than what the Weather Service has. One of us is going to be right, one of us is going to be wrong, and probably the odds favor me being wrong uh, than the other forecast. But yeah, I know that there's parts of that forecast that I put up that is just not going to work out. Unlike the last two, which were, you know, as good as they get.
Right.
But it wasn't going to. That streak was not going to last forever. All right, we've got winter
And
storm.
and
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
my daughter on the chat board just making an announcement. Wappingers is closed. Turning off my alarm for tomorrow. She teaches up in the Wappingers area, so and that's why I think. In fact, I know that's why she came down here to be with us, because she doesn't have to go to school tomorrow, because again she knew that they were going to shut down and close, and they did. And Cecilia Hernandez, does it bother me when people criticize me before a flake has even fallen? I have gained, and Joe probably has too, a thick skin over 4 decades. I've had everything thrown at me from the general public, and a couple of times well deserved, because I've believe me, I've busted big time, especially in the early part of my career. But at this point in my career, especially since I'm not answering really to anybody, and I don't work at a television station anymore, does it bother me? No. As I said, I'll wait, and tomorrow maybe I'll have a few words for those people who came at me over the weekend. We'll see. We'll see. Back
Yeah,
to you, Joe.
yes, I have I've always had a thick skin. Social media, unfortunately, has thinned it out. However, the great equalizer is that I block them. Or I say, I might respond and just tell them to go, to go away and go. My favorite response usually is, "This weather page is not for you. You need to go. Um, you need to go to a weather page that is your level of understanding." And then I'll either say, uh, most of the times I'll just say, I'll give if you'd like, I'd give you a list of other weather people. You could go there. But I often thought, Joe, the second part of that response, when the saying that you have, to go to a weather source that has that reaches your level of understanding. I'm always tempted to put an Amazon link to the weather book that you wrote for kids.
Well, that would help.
Yes,
Get a few, sell a few more books.
that's true. All right, we've got winter storm warnings up in the Northeast. We've got also various wind advisories up. We have high wind warnings up for coastal southeastern New England. Advisories, which weather advisories flank the north side up into Maine and way up into upstate New York and also into western New York. And also on the southern edge of the winter storm warnings, we have some winter weather advisories in Connecticut, north of Route 15, also in the Connecticut. I don't know. Did they leave it as they had a winter storm watch for the Connecticut River Valley, and no, they changed that to a winter weather advisory. So that's now matches, and with the wind, that's another problem here, by the way, because of the wind going to the north. You're going to have the wind coming down the Hudson Valley and wind also coming down the Connecticut River Valley while this upper low is going by. And that's going to tend to dry the precip up to an extent later tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening. And that also could be a problem with regards to putting down any kind of significant snow amounts, certainly in those areas. Um, I said I got bogeys bees. So we now have Steve Lapointe reminding everybody to hit the like button. And we've got a good crowd tonight. And Leon
And
Probitsky,
Yeah,
Leon
Leon.
hitting super chat tonight. So thank you very much for
Leon on his pet Peter Potamus.
yes. As I said earlier in the open, here in the deep south, we've got freeze warnings up because the growing season in many of these areas has already gotten underway, and that runs from North Carolina all the way back into Arkansas. And since I've already gotten to 80 degrees for the first time, and it only got to mid 40s here today, I'm cold. In the west, especially in California, it's another round of horrible weather. Winter storm warnings continue in the Sierra Nevadas. The snow levels are higher this time around, so in the lower elevations, they're going to be clobbered with heavy rain, and we have also a number of flash flood watches up in the state, as well as wind advisories. Some high wind warnings in Wyoming, winter storm warnings in the western part of the state, into southwest Montana, with some advisories and some more high wind warnings up there. And it looks like we've got a few winter storm watches up in a number of counties in western Colorado. So let's go to the satellite loop. And you can actually see, by the way, the convection that is around the low. There's,
Yes.
there's a thunderstorm. There's some lightning strikes there being indicated by the satellite loop. So that's where your low center is, and it's still moving out to the east. And if you look around the Great Lakes, you'll see the swirl there. That's the upper low that's moving eastward and is going to basically try and grab this and lift it up toward Cape Cod. Joe, the thing that would have made this whole thing a different scenario with a snowier outcome. I talked earlier about the fact that this system just came out too fast by about 6 or 7 hours or so. But the other possibility would have been that this system would have developed to the point where it would just get kicked out to the northeast, and the upper low would miss it, and then you would probably have a second low that would form as the upper low were to go by across southern New Jersey. But of course, then the question becomes, well, how much moisture would you have left, since wouldn't the first storm rob it? It might. I mean, it would have put a whole different variable in it. But as you can see, pieces were here. Timing was not perfect. But as that horrible cliche goes, it is what it is. Some strong thunderstorms moving across South Florida this evening. And then if you look out in the west, you'll notice that there is a storm system coming in with more heavy rain and snow there. Um, I can't. By the way, people are sending me messages on Facebook if they're watching the show and sending messages. I can't. I can't do both at the same time, so you'll have to wait for a response, and that's that. Okay. Here we go. Here's our radar at the moment, and looks like some heavy rain now moving over Long Island and into southern New England. I wonder if Chuck Cardillo's not on the board because I'd be curious whether he's up at 3,000
Yeah,
feet in
he
the
is.
Cats. Oh, he is. So
He is.
did he mention? I didn't see Chuck. Did Chuck mention? Chuck, is it snowing out where you are, or is it doing something else? And while he's checking that, Joe Arabia hit the tip jar tonight. Yes, have a good nap, well deserved. Thank you. And
This is a
also,
new one. This
yes,
is a new one. Nick, Nicky, Nicky Cupcake,
No,
Nicky,
Nicky Cupcake, Nicky
Nicky.
Cupcake.
Yeah.
Hitting super chat. Thank you for the first time hit of the tip jar. Most appreciated. All right, so there's
Didn't
your.
mean to laugh. Didn't mean to laugh.
You know,
That's. I mean, I just love some of these names.
so here's all the action that's being caused by the first low that's out somewhere out here. And if you look back toward the Ohio Valley and lower Great Lakes, you can see there's curvature here. This is the upper low that is moving southeastward and heading for a trip across Pennsylvania and then eventually moving off the New Jersey coast someplace during the day tomorrow. So you're not going to get much out of this first one because it's just too warm. You're going to get the dynamic cooling with the upper low when that goes by. The question is how much, and then what will be left. I don't know. That's the
Well,
bottom line with this.
here's the day. It was Friday night, very much like what it is out there right now. I might add. On Friday night, we had rain. We had temperatures in the upper 30s, and the explanation for the potential for more than a few inches of snow out of this was the fact that we were looking at a potential Norland trough situation, which would back in, bring in a colder flow of air, and also produce a burst Saturday morning of possibly moderate to heavy snow. Never happened. Now, tonight, I know that some of the forecasters are saying, well, it's raining now, but tomorrow, as the storm winds up over toward Cape Cod, it's going to backlash us with bands of snow from the east, coming in from the east, and each band is going to have its own microscale system of strong winds to go along with the snow, and that is where we're concerned about the possibility of bursts of heavy snow and also strong gusty winds to over 40 and 50 miles an hour. Somehow, I don't think that's going to happen either tomorrow.
Chuck Cardillo says it's snowing very hard where he is, 3,000 feet up in the Catskills and 32. So you got to go up 3,000 feet, Joe. 3,000 feet to get some snow in the moment at the moment. Meanwhile, in the west, as this new system is moving in, we've got some heavy rains in Northern California, some snow in the mountains there, and also moving through western Oregon and into Washington State. We've got precipitation even into eastern Washington with some snow there moving up into northern Idaho. WPC on their 7-day rainfalls. Actually, the 2-day rainfalls will probably work out good here. So I'll use the 2-day. Um, uh, in the west, you see the several to many inches of liquid precip, and most of it's going to wind up being rain up and down the coast of California, as well as inland areas. And of course, here in the Northeast, go central New Jersey on south. Again, this starts at 8 o'clock tonight, or it started 12 minutes ago. So whatever's already fallen has fallen. So they're forecasting another tenth to maybe a quarter of an inch for central and south Jersey, and then it just stops. No rain across the South Atlantic states and throughout much of the plains and into the Midwest. No precip at all. And in New England, southern New England down to Long Island, you're seeing an additional inch, and then it goes up to an inch and a half to some 2.5 inch plus some amounts in the mountains in Massachusetts and extending up into New Hampshire. Now, the snow out of all of this, WPC this is the probability for at least 2 inches, and the 50% line looks like it.
Right over my, right over, well,
over,
no, not over my house.
A little further south.
287.
Yeah,
287.
287. And then it pushes down into New Jersey almost, but not quite almost to Route 78, but not quite. And you see in northwest Jersey, it's 80 to 100%. And of course, it's 100% northeast PA on up into upstate New York, Vermont, to New Hampshire, western and central Massachusetts. And the probability for at least 8. Let's do 8. So we've had very little opportunity to do it this winter. It looks like you got to go almost to Route 84 to get to the 50% line for the probability of at least 8. 40% chance in that northwest corner of New Jersey. Port Jervis at the triple point is at 50. And then, of course, you go further north. You start to go into northwest Connecticut and points north. That's when you have the 80, 90, 100% probability for at least 8 inches. And I'll just for laughs, let's put 12. And you see where the 12 is in the Catskills. And also in the Berkshires, you're seeing a high probability there for at least 12 inches. So, by the way, those of you who are watching here and you're here for the first time, welcome. If you're looking in the background, welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. We're on Monday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m., Sundays at 11 a.m., and Fridays and Saturdays we're usually off unless there's a storm involved, in which case we will make a surprise appearance. So I guess we could look at the HRRR, which is only going to take us, Joe, to 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. And this is one of many possibilities.
And before you get further into this, Chuck Cardillo says at 3,000 feet, and he says it's 32 degrees. 3,000 feet on a dry adiabatic lapse chart would be about 10 degrees from lower than sea level. And it would make some sense because in Poughkeepsie, not too long ago, maybe an hour or two ago, I saw the temperature of Poughkeepsie was 42. So it was 42 at Poughkeepsie. Chuck is just a stone's throw away to the west-northwest at 3,000 feet. He's got 32. So at 3,000 feet, yeah, that makes a lot of sense that he's actually been able to lower his temperature some 9 or 10 degrees from what Poughkeepsie has. And that's what Poughkeepsie needs to wait for is wait for those temperatures that drop on down at least within striking distance of freezing before they begin to see snow, and snow that may very well be able to stick. That's going to be a while.
Yep. So, and if you look at what the HRRR has, I mean, it really doesn't have much of any snow going on even up north. I mean, there's a few patches here and there. And, supposedly at 9, all of a sudden there's some blue here at 9 p.m. Only, then it finally starts to expand around midnight, getting down to the New Jersey state line. There's almost a little line of like a little squallish line there through Long Island down into the Atlantic. And it's a little hard to see on this map. I'm going to draw the isobar here just to show everybody. So, you've got your isobar around the low, but it's pinned back northwestward. So there's probably some kind of other low that's trying to form there. And that's in response to the upper low that is approaching. And if we move this along, there you go. So if we move this along, you'll see that the coastal low sort of pivots around, the upper low almost like a lever there, a seesaw, no, a lever, pivots around. So it goes out east and then turns northeast and north. And then by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, it's actually a fair distance east of Cape Cod. But now the upper low's coming into play. So you see all the blue area expanding and some darker blues in there, and even a little bit of S plus purple in Connecticut. But the snow shield suddenly expands all the way down into South Jersey, western Long Island, nothing going on in Suffolk County, nothing going on in south central and southeastern Connecticut and southern Rhode Island because of the way the system's oriented. So, Joe, the hope for snow lovers would have to be that the upper low it does something here that's a little more impressive. But as I said, if you look out over time, go beyond this on some of the on some of the models, you start to see the effects of the wind going to the north and coming down the Hudson Valley and coming down the Connecticut River Valley, and it starts to dry the precip all up. And I think if we take a look at the NAM 12, now the NAM actually is kind of makes a little more sense to me with the wrapped up low right over Cape Cod and a little pullback low there in Long Island Sound, and it's got the same snow shield. You see it there. This is at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So if you believe the NAM, it's snowing on Long Island. It's snowing in most of New Jersey except the south. It's snowing in the Hudson Valley, snowing in Connecticut. Again, how hot are you going to get intensity? I don't know. That's the big question. And now here comes as that wind as the low pivots and that wind goes to the north, you start to see these dry spots occur. And that's going to shut the precip down sometime tomorrow evening, and then finally the low pulls away.
And the other thing that's going to work against the snow lovers tomorrow is that even with the intensity, you got to wonder how much that sun is going to play a role. Now, yes, I know you're not going to be able to see the sun because it's going to be behind a thick layer of clouds, but the infrared and ultraviolet radiations from the sun, which interact with especially blacktop and paved surfaces, that will serve to maybe warm those surfaces up just enough because again, we're not looking for temperatures very much above 32 degrees, but that may work against getting any snow to accumulate on the streets, the highways. Again, as I've been saying for the longest time, this is going to be a snowfall for the cold surfaces, for the grass, for the trees, for the car tops, for my wooden deck. I suspect I'm still going to have to get the shovel out to shovel off whatever accumulates on the deck of my. But on my driveway and on the roads, it's going to be a tough call. And especially, Joe, as you just pointed out, if we do get into some intensity during the day tomorrow, that's one more strike against getting accumulations on the roadways is the infrared and ultraviolet rays of the sun.
Michael Ether, new to the chat board and hitting super chat for the first time. Thank you, Michael. Very generous of you, and always appreciate a toss of coin into the tip jar. Keeps us fed for another day. I thought go ahead.
With 34 and with 34 away from 200, Joe.
Oh, great! Let's get 200 likes tonight.
That's
folks.
right.
200 likes and maybe 200 more subscribers would be nice if you hit the subscribe button with your on YouTube with your Gmail account, and you'll never miss a show. So I thought let's look at the ensembles because maybe the ensembles could straighten out some of the model differences. So here's the GFS ensemble, and you see all those red numbers are kind of hard to read, but those are the different members showing where it thinks the low center is, and this is right now. And you see how it goes out, and most of the members are all clustered around Cape Cod, and then the low does a little drop southward and then pulls away to the east. So that, at least from the ensembles, we're not seeing any members, Joe, that are taking the low up into central Massachusetts like the RGEM did.
Right.
So that's that. And we can look at the European. And this is the 12Z because the 18Z run has just started. And the European's got more of that bent back, that pulled back isobar than the GFS does. It actually has a low there sitting over eastern Long Island. It swings the ocean low a little bit further to the east, almost to the coast of Maine, northeast of Cape Cod, before it does the thing where it drops southward and then moves eastward. Speaking of the European, why don't we take a look? I'm gonna bring this.
I gotta tell you, the baseball announcers sometimes will make a comment, especially those who have been around for like 40, 50 years. Well, I've been in baseball 44 years. I've never seen anything like that before, or that kind of a play before. And I got to tell you something, Joe, I don't even remember. I can't remember anything remotely resembling this scenario that we're looking at right now, where we've got a primary low way out to sea and a stretched out look in the isobars producing a secondary storm right up next to the coast. Now, I can remember a couple of occasions where the storm was analyzed with two centers, a
Yeah.
double center thing. But I don't remember ever seeing something like what we're seeing now with the stretching, so to speak, of the isobars of the main system out way out in the ocean and the other system close to the coast. And it's almost like the tail wagging the dog, if you will, because it looks like the tail is taking the dog or the main low and sweeping it around over to the north and northwest up into the Cape Cod area by tonight and tomorrow.
I can recall a few instances where we've had this. The difference, though, I think in those cases, and in those cases, uh, most of eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England and the coast got a lot of snow out of it because the upper low was a little further south, and actually I think it might have even happened uh, just a few years ago where we had a situation where you had one low that was out to the east and there was this this arm that was just pulled all the way back with a low pinned under the upper low off the New Jersey coast, and the upper low just went crazy and produced all it was one of the bigger snowstorms that we had sometime between 2010 and 2020. That's as good as my memory is these days.
Yeah.
So anyway, here's the New European. So let's see what this does. So here we are at 2 a.m. So I'm not sure the color for purple is used for both heavy snow and for the mixing. So I don't know if that purple is heavy snow or if it's sleet. But let's just assume that it's one or the other. And so here we are at 5 a.m. And you see where the coastal low is. Look at that. That low is so far out. It's at
Right.
38 and a half and 68 and a half. And then you've got another low center here. Is a closed 96 isobar sitting right over the Twin Forks. All right. Sorry.
It's like a
I
nodule.
jumped. Yeah.
I'm not even gonna call it a low. I'll call it like a nodule of low pressure, and that is the thing that is controlling the adverse weather for us tonight and tomorrow. It's not that system way out.
No, it's
It's
it's the
that
upper
second thing.
low and the second
Yeah,
thing. And actually, because of how it sets up with respect to the upper low, and was just talking about how, what happens if you look at the European, the upper low is having it keeps jumping. I'm sorry about that. Um, uh, Hold on, let me get back to tomorrow morning. So the upper low is having the impact. All this dark blue snow that you see pretty far north of the coast and going all the way up into western Massachusetts, Vermont, up into the Adirondacks. You see the lighter blue snows much further south. No precip at all at 7 a.m. over Long Island and south coastal Connecticut or in coastal and southern New Jersey. And let's go to that's at 8 a.m., 11 a.m. Still nothing on Long Island. You see the light blue snow is pushed down into central New Jersey. And now we start to see it after this is 2 p.m. We're starting to see some snow spreading across Nassau and western Suffolk County and covering, again, it's light though, the lighter blues, the darker blues, and some of the purples there, Joe. I think that's probably some bursts of heavier snows that are showing up north of you uh, and also in western Connecticut. And there you go. This is at 4 p.m. 7 p.m. and now it's starting to wind down. So let's just out of curiosity, let's see what the snowfall forecast map for the European says. So we know it's not going to be 10 to 1, but let's look at that anyway. And by the way, for you young forecasters watching, uh, snow maps should not be used uh, in any way as a way of making your forecast. It's a tool, but as far as the specific numbers are concerned, uh, it is doubtful. Pretty much the whole map is doubtful in terms of how it ultimately comes out. So I mean, look, it has a slushy inch and a half, I guess, over western Long Island. The western half of Long Island doesn't give much to North Jersey, and looks like for you, Joe, you're kind of on that edge around 2 or 3 inches. Then you go up north, further north, you start to get into some of the double-digit amounts and some big amounts in the Berkshires, in Massachusetts, and extending up into Vermont and New Hampshire. and I also will look at the Cuchera total snowfall, and this is supposed to be at a lower ratio and take into account some snow melt, I think. So we'll let that load, and there we go. So it's finally getting there. And the Cuchera snowfall totals, Joe, even less. Uh, Barely a coating to a half an inch along parts of the coast, and nothing more than a couple of inches in North Jersey or in Rockland or even Orange County. You have to go up into the Catskills. You have to go up in Western Mass. You go up into Vermont. That actually, of all the snow maps, probably has the highest chance of being right.
Yeah, yeah. It certainly matches. Let's put it this way: it kind of matches more my map than in any other models are suggesting. And we'll see.
All right,
We'll see. All the fun is about to pile in on us.
Yeah.
The coming hours.
We had some additional super chat hits.
We had Louis Alessi and Bilbo Swaggins. Oh, I love that name. Bilbo Swaggins, Jason Schaefer, and Michael Ethier. They came on right after Nicky Cupcake. So there you go.
And we got over 200 likes, which is great. Thank you. For those of you who hit the like button, thank you so much. All right, let's run real quick. Let's just talk about the West for a moment because they got a big low that's coming in for tomorrow, and you see it there. They're gonna have wind issues with this, and again, yeah, some dark blue heavy snows, but a lot of rain coming in to the state of California and into Nevada. Some snow up in eastern Oregon and into Idaho. Meanwhile, our storm pulls away. There's not a whole lot of cold air behind it. Here comes that energy coming into the west later this week. There's a low in Kansas, and guess where that's going? That's going up into the Great Lakes, and it deepens to a 980-ish low. So looks like some snows, some moderate snows, maybe some heavy snow for areas from Kansas into Iowa and Minnesota. Michael H-O-U, Michael who? Asking about St. Patrick's Day up in Minnesota. Well, it may snow the night before. It looks like it comes to an end probably sometime early in the morning on Friday. Then we get a cold front here in the east that doesn't look like it has a whole lot to it. Front stalls out, wave along the coast, which will get Sal Blandino working up a sweat that maybe we'll get some clouds out of that one. And then that goes out. Colder behind it. It's a decent shot of cold air, but for St. Joseph's Day, a 516 thickness, Joe, on St. Joseph's Day still probably means a high back up in the upper 30s and low 40s at the very least, if not higher. And then that goes out, and there's some kind of low that comes out of the Caribbean, of all places, and runs up the East Coast with snow inland and rain at the coast. A 989 low on the 22nd.
Not another one.
No, I know. Just make it go away. Yeah, I could just hit buttons and make that go away. More energy coming into the west. While all this is going on, you still got this open jet in the western part of the United States with system. There's a brief break, and then systems start to come in again in the long range. All right, so that one goes out, and then it's got another low with a cold front around March 25th. And that goes out, and then, because of course it has to put at least one chance for snow on every run. And on this particular run, March 27th, 28th is when it has, something coming straight across, not even lifting northeastward. It just runs straight west to east, which this winter has not happened at all. So why should it do it now? So anyway. I imagine there'll probably be another one that'll probably torture us. I honestly, Joe, I hope this is the last one, because I think I'm more tired from the frustration of going 2+ months without having to really do much of anything forecast-wise, and that to suddenly have to deal with this now when we're at the end of the season. I just want it to just go away. I just go away.
Michael Ethier, by the way, writes, "Love you guys. I watch you
Thank
guys
you.
long before my local weather in Rhode Island." And I should point out that one of our former compatriots over at FiOS 1, and then later News 12, and then later Fox Weather,
Yes,
Michael
Jeffrey
is now in your market. Jeff,
Danson.
he used to refer to himself as Jeffrey the Giraffe
Yeah.
on Facebook. I said,
Yes.
I think if you want to go anywhere, Jeff, change your name to your real name or whatever. It's Jeff Vanson, who just started on in the Providence market. We wish him well, and he's got to be good because Joe and I taught him everything we know.
Oh, good Lord. Well, I'm glad for him. Congratulations to Jeff, by the way, for landing a great job in Providence, and all the best of luck to you. And
May you become as popular and make as much money as John Giorsi. If you're from the Providence area, I don't know if Michael grew up with John Giorsi. John Giorsi was like the Dr. Frank Field of Providence, Rhode Island. And one time he made a move from one station, I think it was from WJAR to another station, or maybe vice versa, and they called it the Giorsi factor, because they said he was going to bring a ton of viewers over to the other station. And at that time, Joe, this was back in the 80s, John Giorsi was making like $250,000. And that was like unheard of for any weather. I mean, he wasn't even in the Boston.
That salary number was certainly unheard of by me.
Yeah, and by me too. But I mean, like, that wasn't even, none of the Boston forecasters were making that much money. But Giorsi was making that much money because he was that valuable. So I hope somewhere down the road, our dear friend Jeff Vanson will be as popular and hopefully making as much money as John Giorsi. I met John Giorsi, by the way, at an AMS conference. I forget where it was. I think it was in Williamsburg, Virginia. And I never saw him. I didn't even see a picture of him. And he reminded me of my Uncle Teddy when I met him.
Really?
He and his wife, and by then he was probably in his 60s. And I said to myself, this is John Giorsi, the legendary John Giorsi, and he was just like anybody else, you know. Oh boy.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of. No, I haven't really met anyone lately. I'll have to run through my memory banks to see who I can remember. Because these days, especially after a stretch of days like we've just had dealing with this storm and all, my brain is really like Jello. So anyway,
and yes, I do remember Gary Lay, Jeffrey Mara. I remember Gary Lay very well too.
And so do I. Took a second
yes.
there. Finally made the connection. All right.
Yes.
So tomorrow we'll be back. This will all be winding down. So maybe we'll bring back Briller Jeopardy tomorrow night. Does that work for you?
I think so. I mean, what's going to happen tomorrow? Tomorrow will be the post-mortem.
Right.
And we'll need somebody to take their minds off of our blown forecasts.
Yeah. Well, let's see what happens. We'll see what happens. It'll probably be right in some places, and it'll probably be wrong in others.
I mean, Joe, before we sign off tonight, I always say, what are we missing? What do we miss? There's something unusual, something weird is going to happen, and we're going to come back tomorrow night. We're going to say, "How did we miss that, Joe? How did we miss?" But right now, the best we can do is just tell you, well, we'll stick with what we have gone with, and we'll see what's happening. And thank you to all the people who hit our tip jar, which again, Louis Alessi, Bilbo Swaggin, love that name, Jason Schaefer, Michael Ethier, Nikki Cupcake. Send me a cupcake, Nikki. Joe Arabia, Ken Musillo, Leon Probitsky. I got to take a deep breath. There's so many names here tonight. Steve Lapointe, Bogey's Bees. How could we forget Bogey? Ah, nice, sweetheart. Churbar 117, David Fuller, Helen Bertona, and Silvio Balzano kicked off everything tonight. Thank you, one and all, for hitting our super chat tip jar. Joe and I will be able to go to Kentucky Fried Chicken later. And, well, you're going to sleep. I'll go to KFC.
Yeah, we could buy a couple of dozen eggs with that.
Yeah,
the one thing, just going back to somebody said about the thick skin thing, it just occurred to me because you talked about, tomorrow when we do the postmortem. I guess the thing that bothers me the most with it is when you forecast an inch or two or coating, and this has happened to me, to have people really upset over the fact that that you forecast a slushy coating to an inch or two, and it doesn't happen because chances are if you're down near the coast when you put that in, oftentimes it's a cover your rear end type of forecast. So and you make the disclaimers, of course, to say that there's a chance it could be a coating to an inch, but it's all going to get washed away by rain anyway. And you don't get the coating of an inch. I've had people actually hammer me over that. Okay, I could sort of understand it if I went for 6 inches or more and you got a coating to an inch that got washed away by rain. But when you forecast a coating to an inch and you don't get it and you don't get anything, that's like, yeah, okay. Are you not and you're angry about this? I could just imagine what kind of life you have in your home if you get upset over something like that. Anyhow.
Well, Steve Lapointe on the chat board says rants tomorrow. I don't know if that's going to be a promise, but we'll see.
So Brigadude says, and this is important, Joe. He says he's in Hazleton, Pennsylvania. At the bottom, it was raining. It was snowing 1,300 feet. Wait, he's got at the bottom. The development of the development. It was raining. 1,350 feet at the entrance at the top, where the entrance is 1,650 feet. It was snowing. So
right.
if you're talking about Hazleton and we're talking about elevation, and you got to go all the way up above 1,350 feet to see snow, that's not a good sign. That's not a good sign for snow lovers. Just
No.
putting it out there. So if you're in a place where they got big amounts forecast for you, before you go to bed tonight, say a prayer for the upper low. Okay, say a prayer for the upper low that it's vigorous and it does some massive dynamic cooling and some vertical motion to get some precip going so that you get whatever they're forecasting for your area. Otherwise, you got a problem.
And in the late 70s and early 80s, I actually did the weather in Hazleton, Pennsylvania. I don't even know if the station exists anymore, but it was WAZL, which gave all of us at the office that I used to work at fits because, yeah, you're talking about an elevated area and you're trying to figure out what they're going to be getting versus one of our other stations like at Norristown, Pennsylvania and Philadelphia. And here's Hazleton coming up with, sometimes big snow totals. So memories, Joe.
Yes.
Memories.
Cecilia Hernandez, my plants are my avocado trees and my carnivorous plants are still indoors. They're not going to go outside until at the very earliest late April because we get late frosts and freezes up here in the mountains of North Georgia at 2,200 feet. What I could do with that elevation up by you, Joe.
Well, I'm only up about 500 feet. Yeah. I'm nowhere near where you are.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for the super chat, and we will see you tomorrow at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. Nighty night, everybody.
Night.